if you've heard of that term before, which is essentially, in the US and in North America, people, for example, spent hundreds of years trying to lay copper cables all across North America to establish the telephone industry. I'm sure you're aware of that, right? In Africa, that never happened, right? We skipped that stage. Similar with the phone industry, where GSM technology, went straight without having to go through CDMA and traditional mobile technology. So Africa skipped that. Africa never had a real web sort of internet phase. We went straight to mobile. People may not know that prepaid cards were first started in South Africa and later on East Africa, and then finally made its way to North America. So it's all about doing things that are most cost effective without having to spend a lot of money on capex. So Africa is a very capex unfriendly place, and they go through literally what they call the shortest route to market, because the population's buying power is not as high as it is in more developed economies in the West. So unlike Silicon Valley, where B2C industries tend to be the order of the day, the best example I can give of this is, if you're a Silicon Valley or a New York-based tech startup that needs to go from 100 customers to 100,000 customers in 2 months, you can do that if you have a great CRM strategy, you've got tons of money spent on marketing, or you can raise $5 million in your seed round and spend that on marketing. You can't do that in emerging markets. Maybe in China and now most recently in India, but you can't do that in Latin America or in Africa, because the consumer buying power and the consumer participation in technology-related businesses is very limited. And there's one reason for it. And that's because at the end of the day, you have to figure out very quickly who owns consumer data. And the reality is, in emerging markets, it's pretty much 5 large industries that control customer data and customer interaction with technology: insurance, banking, retail, manufacturing, and telcos, telecommunications, right? So just to repeat that: insurance, banking, manufacturing, telcos, and retailers. So in South Africa and pretty much across the African continent, these 5 industries account for more than 80% of all the movement of money or GDP of the nation, of several African countries. So if you're a startup, irrespective of what field you work in, if your route to market, you guys can hear me, right? I'm not talking to myself, am I?
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
cool.
no.
Right. Okay, because that does happen sometimes.
This is good. Keep going.
Okay, cool. So if you're looking for access to market, and you aren't literally in bed with one of the 4 or 5 major players in one of these 4 or 5 industries, good luck. Pretty much you're never going to scale. And that's the story of business in South Africa, in Kenya, in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Brazil, in Peru, in the Far East. That's just how business works, right? So to summarize, I have a little point there saying B2B versus B2C versus B2B2C. Essentially what I mean is, if your end customer is an individual or a consumer, unless you can find a route to market that involves a large corporation or an industry, you can't get access to market. And that essentially means channel, distribution, licenses, everything.